What is up, guys? It's Mason once again, and we continue our coverage of the 2024 Chess Olympiad. In the open section, Ghana plays against Cape Verde, and in the women's section, Ghana plays against South Korea. Before we get into the games, I want to say thank you guys so much for your support during these days of coverage. I mean, the subscribing amount has really encouraged me, and I would like to hear from you guys more. So type a comment, even if it's just hi, type a comment. I want to hear from you. If you have any suggestions, any games you want me to look at, I'll be very happy to do so. Okay, so without much ado, let's get straight into the games. We are starting with the female section, and we are looking at Hepzibah's game. Unfortunately, I haven't yet looked at a Hepzibah win. She has won. I'm yet to look at it, so expect that to come out as well. We have d4, d5, Hepzibah. She's playing against Kim Sarang. From South Korea, like I said. E3, C6, knight F3, E6, and we know where all this is going. The only difference here is F5, right? Yes, your opponent has weakened the position, but this is completely fine. It sort of resembles a stone wall where this dark squared bishop is going to really do a good job. And eventually this bishop is going to unveil itself. But the problem so far, if you look at Hepzibah's development, is that she's playing a system as a system. And what I mean by that is, it doesn't seem like she's really adjusting. It seems more or less like she's just playing it because she knows it. And that runs into a lot of problems, because when you don't take into consideration the possible plans your opponent can have, and you just simply play one known plan, it can really hurt you a lot. Again, I'm not saying that she doesn't have middle game knowledge or strategy knowledge. She does show that as she plays the games. I'm just saying that for the opening aspect of the games, she seems to have this mechanized way of playing, and that is very understandable at the early stages. What I said during the live stream is that with the way she's playing, if she's able to improve and understand those nuances in chess positions and everything, she'll become a very strong player, I believe. Anyway, so we have c4, a6, rook to c1, knight to e4, and you don't really rush. Yes, this knight is dangerous, but at the moment it doesn't have much of a threat. Okay, so you try and prevent your opponent from getting whatever it is that they want to get. Of course, it cannot be played now, but imagine something like this is played. You put yourself in hot waters. So you should play, like, for example, here, knight to e5. But here, Hepzibah rushes with the captures. And after takes knight e5, queen g5, and it's very difficult to know what to do here. The ideal thing you want to do is to try and hold this position, but here you have 3 attackers and just 2 defenders, so you can't really hold this position. And if you try to add another defender, it just doesn't work because of captures and percent, and there's no this, right? Because we are always going to meet here, bishop takes, and then here, and you are still in trouble. So these are the sort of things you have to learn and know that, okay, my opponent can do this, so let me learn to avoid it, or let me learn to stop it, right? Anyway, so this is not what we have in the game. We have knight takes d7, bishop takes d7, and the problem here is these bishops are going to come alive very soon, and accompanying with the rooks, yeah, there's going to be a very strong and deadly attack coming at white. We have g3, bishop to c7, bishop to g4, rook f6, pawn takes, and then h5. So here, Hepzibah is doing very well. Her opponent is trying to rush the attack, and it's not really taking into consideration Hepzibah's counterattack. So even though I was criticizing this move, it ended up helping her. So she takes first. Of course, if you take now, you are giving her free reign. Take, and then here. So white is having a very good position. We have the right move, pawn takes, and then bishop takes. After the rook comes in, then we have the nice intermezzo, rook to c5, and then after we get e5, blocking the defense of the rook to the bishop. Hepzibah plays the right move here, bishop to e2, and the question now is, how do we stop our opponent's attack? Like, we can really tell what's going to happen. This bishop can come in here, the king can come up, this rook can come in here. The question becomes, how do we either stop or slow down our opponent's attack? We have rook to h3, preventing any h4 ideas. And Hepzibah here plays king to g2. King to g2 makes sense, but it might be a bit too slow. Her point is that she wants to get the rook here and hold this position if possible, right? But after bishop to d6, rook to a5, queen to h6, and we see that yes, you don't really have the time to do that. Why? Because if you do defend this way, you get hit with this move. You could get hit with this move, and you may not be able to stand all this pressure that's coming on you, right? So unfortunately for Hepzibah, she falls into this whole tactic, and after a few more moves, she just gets heavily attacked and then loses the game. So I mean, very understandable. The mistake she makes here, I think for a beginner level, is okay. I think in the early stages of chess, again, when I say beginner level, I'm mainly referencing her age, right? She's very young. So at the early stages of your chess growth, it's very normal to fall for these type of things. I'm just hoping that she's learning from these experiences, and that is going to really propel her to become a very, very strong female chess player in Ghana. So we move on to the next game, which is the game between Toby and Kang Soyoung. If my Korean pronunciation is correct, I'm sorry. So my PC is lagging again. So Toby here plays as white, and then we get d4, d5, bishop f4, e6, e3, bishop to d6, bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, and then c3. And this is exactly what I'm talking about concerning memorizing the opening. Maybe she was worried about this, but in all my knowledge of these types of openings, this should never be a bad sign, right? This should never be a bad sign. Why should be okay in such positions? But it seems Toby was very worried. Possibly, I don't know exactly what she was thinking, but it seems she was possibly worried about this move. But this is normally like a poison pawn. The b2 pawn is usually like a poison pawn. So you are okay giving it out. c3, I would not advise this move until your opponent seems to have a chance of coming to attack your bishop on d3. So the manner in which Toby plays it seems a little bit off, at least for a London system player, because what you realize is that after a few more moves, what you don't want to see is seen. I've mentioned countless times how you want to prevent e5, and now you have so many problems. And basically, the moment you see this, what this means is that not only has black obtained in equality, black is taking over the initiative. And now after these trades, Toby is in a very bad position, and you can see this is not where you want to be as white. White is like very passive, not really developed, and here black, who starts behind white, seems to be having more activity. So be very careful with these things. When studying the opening, there are certain key things you should know. It's not just about memorizing the moves. Why are the moves, right? There are specific reasons why we say play in this move order, or play these specific moves. Aim to get here, aim to do this. Don't just memorize the move. I wanted to use the word memorize, but try and know the ideas. The ideas are more important than the moves necessarily, because with the ideas you could make the moves. If it makes sense. Unless of course some of those convoluted openings. So these two games are a very good example of not just playing the opening the way you know it, but taking note of what the ideas are. So what could my opponent be trying to do against me based on this opening that I'm playing? How can he cause the most problems for me, right? And looking to those things. Okay, so this is what he's aiming for, and then you can play prophylactically, or you can play to fight against these things. So now queen to e5. We have, knight f3, queen to e3, queen to c2, b6. What's up? Rook fd1, bishop to b7, queen to f5. So, I mean, the plan for black seems very simple. You are going to put your rooks on these squares and then eventually go pawn push. open up the attack here, h4, h5, h5, h4. These days, you notice I like mentioning this idea. Yes, it doesn't always work, but it's a very good idea. This knight can jump in. There are so many ways for black to unfurl the attack. Of course, it does not mean it's going to be successful, but it's a good thing nonetheless. We have a6, a very strange move. It doesn't address the situation in any way. Bishop to d3, and hence giving to me the chance to come back. Bishop to b6, another move that doesn't address the situation. The bishop is best placed here. This is a simple, what we call one move threat. You threaten one thing. Once it's solved, then there was no point to the move. That's what we call a one move threat. Something that just can, you attack something that is valuable, but after I move that piece, there's nothing more, right? That you didn't actually gain anything from the move you made, right? So that's basically what this is. Queen goes to g5, rook to e8, c4, h6, queen to h4, d takes c6, bishop takes c6. Sorry, bishop takes c4, queen to f4, and we just see a sort of maneuvering going on. But eventually, Toby landed this, and after some exchanges, we realized that Toby in this endgame is not so much favored. One, because of these, right? The pawn numbers. Black has the majority on the queen side, black has the majority on the king side. So if we were to trade off all the minor pieces, defending this position as white is not going to be so easy. We have rook ad1, we trade. Like we said, the more you trade, the better the position becomes for your opponent. Bishop takes f3, king takes f3, rook to e6, and now you could win this again if you can isolate all the pawn play to one side of the board, but with these types of advantages, it's not so easy. Rook to d5, rook to c6. Her opponent is not really playing well, but again, it's all up to Toby. King to f8, rook to e5, f6, rook to d5, king to e7. King tries to infiltrate, and now black gets the pawns rolling, which is what black should be doing. Takes, c3, takes, pawn, takes, and then the rook comes down. The point of the rook coming down is to come in here and stop the pawn from promoting. We have c2, rook to c1, and now with this move, your king is stuck. And if your opponent would want to, he can, instead of making it quick, he can slowly progress his king and enter into your territory to basically win this guy. And that's not what black does immediately, but eventually we get into this sort of position where, again, my PC is freezing. Forgive how bad my PC is. And now basically Toby's rook is tied down to the defense of this pawn, and this king cannot infiltrate, cannot involve or participate itself in the defense. This king is just going to have a free way throughout the game, and that is why Toby resigned the game. So pretty unfortunate. I believe firmly that the two of them fell for the exact same reason, which was in the opening. Yes, there are chances for you to bounce back, but sometimes if you really get too down bad in the opening, trust me, you are just losing from there. Okay, we move on to the open section. Actually, all the girls lost, so we move on to the open section and we look at Daniel Frimpong-Smart's game versus Vaz Carlos. Again, I don't know what's happening today with the internet. It's lagging and all those sort of things, but anyways, let's continue. Frimpong-Smart as white plays d4. We have d5, knight f3, knight f6, g3, e6, bishop g2, c4, and we have the close Catalan, which is what he has been playing throughout this tournament. Queen a4, and what happens from this point on is a series of trades, which basically leads us into this sort of early end game position. It's not really an end game, but sort of an early end game position with symmetrical material on the board. We have bishop to c5, knight to c3, castles, bishop to g5, h6, takes, and then we have e3. Very okay position. Not much is happening on the board. When I looked at this position, I was like, okay, we are possibly going to get a draw. these pawns are doing a very good job because they are all on dark squares. Your opponent doesn't have a light squared bishop, so he can't take advantage of this. And yeah, very okay, very normal, very simple game. Doesn't seem like anybody's ahead. b6, rook a d1, queen to f3, and rook to d7. I love this move. Infiltrating to your opponent's position. Remember, the rook on the 7th rank is a pig. So if black doesn't take care, this rook might, even at some point in time, work together with the queen to cause havoc on the 7th rank. We have rook f to c8, queen to d1, queen to f5, and then finally rook takes. And after rook takes, h5 is played. Now, what this means is, though the position looks stale, black is trying to create chances. And h4, h5, again, with this type of position, is not going to amount to much, but I appreciate black for trying. The whole point is, you want to trade off your pawns here, push this guy, eventually get the rook here, and aim for checkmate. That's the most common plan I can remember with this type of position. So you should always ask yourself, am I adequately defending my king side on the h file? If not, then you find a way to defend yourself. You could even borrow a page from Hepzibah's book. King g2, rook h1. Anyways, we have rook d7, h4. And here I was actually a little bit I wondered a little bit why he didn't immediately go this way. But then again, that's fine. Rook to d7, queen to rook to d7, h4, queen to d3. Excuse me. Queen to h3. Again, the whole plan. Takes is not a problem. The problem is when this happens and then it comes here. Knight to a4. Now you might be saying, wait, knight to a4 is a very strange move. All the actions on the king side. Why knight to a4? I also thought the same thing. But then again, you can't really try this whole idea, right? Unless, of course, your opponent allows you, right? Your opponent allows you and then you play this. And this is your opponent actually just allowing you. But your opponent is not going to do that. More or less, they are going to go rook to c1. And if you keep continuing like trying to create something here, all you're going to end up is rook takes, queen takes, and then eventually you come in here. And there's basically nothing for you in this position. So yes, even though I also thought knight to e4 was better, actually it doesn't really help so much. Knight a4 is completely fine. Takes, and he does the right thing. Though he disconnects though he disconnects his rooks, he keeps a very key piece safe. You want to sacrifice here if you can. We have e4, e5, and then queen to d7. And this move looks so nice to me and so appealing to me. Actually, both Smart and I completely missed this. The calculation I think we both thought went something along the lines of, if my opponent comes in here, I have this. Right? He can't get into this square. If my opponent comes in here, I have takes. Sorry, I have takes. And if king takes, I have check. And if you defend, I win your queen. Right? So I think this is what we're both looking at. But you don't have to play any of that. Rook f6. Rook f6 was all you needed. And now it's very difficult for black to make a difference, for white to make a difference, or even save the position. We have rook takes, and after you're expecting rook takes c6, rook takes c7 here, but that's not what happened. Even though the bishop was won, he was not willing to do this, I think because he was worried about this, but it's no longer a background checkmate. The king can hide here, right? But unfortunately, that's not what happened. We got rook to f6, and after takes here, there's rook to f8, and unfortunately, Smart misses the winning move here. In this position, Smart goes rook takes a7, and basically allows this. which cannot be stopped. Maybe he hallucinated and thought, oh wait, I can take this. If my opponent comes here, I can play this, and if he comes here, I can escape. It's possible. It's possible he hallucinated that. But you don't even get that move. Basically, what all that happens is, if you play this, you just get hit with this. Like, there's nothing you can do from this point on. So it's possible he hallucinated. The safety first move is this. Because now if your opponent comes in here, you can just trade off. And Smart basically missed that. And from this point on, he couldn't actually save the game. And that's why he resigns. Actually, he resigned before the moves I showed on the board. But yeah, actually, he could have turned this back. And that's what pains me. Oh, I almost forgot. He's now a conditional candidate master. He fulfilled the requirements to become a candidate master. He just has to register for it, and he will get it. The special condition is in the Olympiad, if you can score 3.5 out of 7 games that you play. That's 3.5 out of the 7 rounds that you play. It's 11 rounds. Then you play 7 rounds. If you're able to score 3.5, you get the candidate master title. So guys, I'm aiming for that as well. Let's move on to the last game, the final game. That is Anhuere Bernard versus David. Actually, the other way around. David versus Anhuere Bernard. Bernard plays as black. In this game, it's very interesting. After I flip this, e4 c5, we have a Sicilian defense. Knight f3 a6. d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4. Knight f6, knight c3, and then we have a6, the knight of defense. And it's a very slow, progressive way of playing, but I mean, he makes it work. h3, e6, and then g4. I've mentioned this so many times. Overly aggressive play may not be the best option to go for early. Knight c6. Unfortunately, against Hasford and Akwanda, I think, who played this round, they did fall for this, right? They did fall for, they did lose to the aggressive attack. g5, knight d7, h4, queen b6, knight b3, queen c7, h5, and then we have b5. It's like White doesn't want you to castle here whatsoever. But then again, White can't castle himself. Bishop to f4, and then we have b4, knight b1, and then we have bishop to b7. So even with just this one pawn, you can see that for some, it just feels like Black is slowly starting to encroach on White. Though it looks so sneaky, you can't really see it, but it seems like Black is making headway in the position. Rook h3, knight c to e5, knight to d2, bishop to e7, c3, a5, knight d5, and then knight d4, and then d5. And after d5, it seems Black seems to lose focus here for a bit, and this helps Bernard win a pawn, because you go b takes c5, c3, b takes c3, d takes e4, knight jumps in, and now you're just up a pawn. But he instantly traded off here, and I do not know why, because that is his only active piece. The knight here was his only active piece. So to trade it for an inactive piece here, or a passive piece here, doesn't really make much sense, but he has his plans. Knight takes, queen comes in. We have e5, the dangers of castling. We have e5, queen a4, castles kingside, castling into the fire. Like I said, it doesn't work if it's played in a certain way. Bishop to c4, knight jumps in, forking the bishop and the queen. Bishop takes, queen takes, winning the exchange. Castles, more trades happen on the board, and eventually we get into this end game where both players are trying to queen, but it's obvious that Black is there. Bishop f6, bishop to e8, queen to b2 check, takes again, check again, bring the queen closer. No forced trade here because you get checkmated. e3, c6, queen d5, bishop takes d5, e2. And yeah, I wanted to make a point here. Don't be in a hurry and say, oh, I'm just gonna go pawn push. Yeah, when you do something like this, you actually make it harder for yourself, right? Because now the bishop guards your promotion squares. Granted, you will still be able to do something considering the mass amount of pieces you have, but be careful of such moves. Bishop takes f3, promotes into a queen, and now his opponent is trying to back rank threat him, but that doesn't work because of forks with checks. Check, win, check, check, and there's nothing you can do from this point, because once you take here, I'm going to take here with check. Once you move, I'm just going to take here with check. So you can't really dodge here. So out of all the games we played today, only Bernard won. So thank Bernard for holding the team up. Guys, we continue the rounds tomorrow. If you've enjoyed this coverage, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me out. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day. Peace.